Let's get started with our first news. Daniel Cormier was impressed with Alex Pereira's takedown defense. His reaction to Magomed Ankalaev defeating Alex Pereira was really interesting. DC made it clear he was extremely impressed with Pereira's ability to defend takedowns, but at the same time, he pointed out a major weakness. He doesn't believe Alex is as good of a fighter when his opponent is pressuring him and forcing him to move backwards. That's where things get difficult for him. The pressure, the pace. Ankalaev wasn't able to secure the takedowns like many expected. On that front, Alex Pereira was much better than anyone had anticipated. He defended 11 out of 11 takedown attempts from Magomed Ankalaev. That's right, 11 out of 11. Every single level change, he matched. Every time Ankalaev got to his legs, Pereira was able to adjust, react, and change position immediately. That's an impressive display of defensive wrestling. But here's the thing, Ankalaev was unwilling to take a back step, and that changed everything. Because of that, he was able to put Pereira in some seriously rough positions. You could see it. Pereira wasn't as comfortable as he usually is. And you know what tonight showed? You heard the urgency in Pereira's corner. His coaches knew exactly what was happening. They knew that this was a problem. Tonight proved that he's just not as good when he has to move backwards. That's the key takeaway here. If you force Pereira on the back foot, he's not the same unstoppable force. He's still a great fighter. He was still in the fight, but Ankalaev had more success than anyone anticipated. Why? Because he was able to implement that game plan. The relentless forward pressure, the refusal to take a step back, and the ability to control where the fight took place. It all added up. Ankalaev executed it perfectly, and that's why he walked away with the win. Moving on to the second news. Jon Jones wants to fight Tom Aspinall. Let's talk about the big news. Jon Jones wanting to fight Tom Aspinall. For months, there's been speculation, there's been talk, and there's been accusations that Jones has been ducking Aspinall. But after UFC 313, Dana White made it crystal clear. Jones wants the fight. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like to help support the channel. Let's break this all down. Throughout much of 2024, Jon Jones has been brushing off the idea of fighting Aspinall. Why? Because according to him, the fight doesn't do anything for his legacy. Jones has already cemented himself as one of the greatest fighters in MMA history, and in his eyes, fighting Aspinall isn't a must-do for his GOAT status. But things have taken an interesting turn. After UFC 309, Jones actually admitted that he would throw hands with Aspinall if the UFC paid him handsomely. That was the first real sign that this fight might actually be possible. Well, now we have more information. More recently, Aspinall himself reported that the reason the fight hasn't been signed yet isn't because of him. It's because Jones and his camp are holding it up. So after UFC 313, Dana White was directly asked about Aspinall's comments, and White shut down all doubts. Jon Jones wants the fight. That's right, Dana said it himself. The only thing left to figure out, when and where. White also revealed that the UFC is targeting this summer for the fight. UFC 317 is scheduled for June 28th in Las Vegas, which falls right in the middle of International Fight Week. A massive time for the promotion. That could be the perfect stage for this mega fight. But now, here's the big question. Do you guys believe White's comments? Is this a done deal? Or do you think it's all talk until we see the contract signed? Will you believe it when you see it? And let's not forget about another bold claim. Following Magomed Ankalaev's championship win on Saturday, he was asked a huge question. How would he have done against prime Jon Jones during his legendary 205 run? The new champion didn't hesitate. He believes he could have handed Jones his first legitimate defeat. Ankalaev straight up said, "I think I could." Back then, in that time, if I was fighting alongside Jon Jones, I don't see why not. That is a bold statement, considering Jones was at his absolute peak during his light heavyweight reign. But what do you think? Could Ankalaev have actually beaten a prime Jon Jones at 205? Moving on, ESPN compensates customers for UFC 313 issues. One of the biggest negative storylines from UFC 313 was that a lot of ESPN Plus subscribers couldn't watch the pay-per-view. According to reports, many people had issues streaming the event, and the internet was on fire with complaints. Dana White acknowledged the problems after the card, and unsurprisingly, he wasn't happy about it. White said, "Yeah, there were problems buying the pay-per-view on ESPN Plus. I don't know what happened with their platform tonight, but yeah, there were a lot of pissed off people." Due to the outrage, ESPN ultimately made the entire UFC 313 card-free to watch. MMA pundit Luke Thomas even confirmed it on social media. He said, "I was going to buy UFC 313 on ESPN Plus this morning because I need it for work. I figured by now they fixed the issue, but to my surprise, it was free. There was no charge. It opened right up, and I watched the entire thing." So yeah, while that absolutely sucks for people who paid to watch it live, at least those who missed it got to watch for free. Did you encounter any problems watching the event? Next up, Tom Aspinall on Alex Pereira versus Jon Jones not happening. If Pereira had defeated Ankalaev, the entire conversation around his next fight would be very different. The hype for a potential showdown between Poatan and Jon Jones would have skyrocketed. But since that didn't happen, Aspinall made it clear. Alex Pereira fighting Bones next is a non-starter. Aspinall also echoed exactly what Dana White said after UFC 313. The promotion is simply waiting on Jon Jones to finally agree on a location and a date for their fight. That's the only holdup right now. Aspinall isn't interested in distractions, in rumors, or in fantasy matchups. He's focused on what's actually in front of him, and he made that crystal clear when he said, "That's off the table now. The Alex Pereira fight at heavyweight or any other weight really is not happening. John, there's only one thing to do, mate. Sign the contract and let's get a date going." He also emphasized that the UFC has already done their part on Jon's side. We saw last night Dana White said everything is done on Jon's side. Now we just have to wait for a date and venue. We've got some good news coming soon. Hopefully. And that's the key word. Hopefully, because fans are still waiting for that official announcement. Everyone wants to see Jones and Aspinall finally scrap to unify the UFC heavyweight titles, but until a contract is signed and a date is set, it's all just speculation. Now, speaking of Pereira and Ankalaev, after their war at UFC 313, both fighters took to social media to speak directly to their fans. Pereira wanted to reassure his supporters. He's doing fine and will be back better than ever. He's not letting this loss shake him, and if history has shown us anything, it's that Poatan is a fighter who learns from setbacks and comes back stronger. Meanwhile, the new champion, Magomed Ankalaev, made a big statement to the UFC brass and the entire division. He's not going to be a champion who just defends his belt. He's planning to dominate. He said, "My #1 goal is to finish all my opponents and make it look easy." That's a bold mission, but if Ankalaev can keep the momentum going, he could have a long reign as champion. So what do you think? Do you see Ankalaev holding the title for a while? Or do you believe Pereira will reclaim the belt in the rematch? Israel Adesanya thought Alex Pereira beat Magomed Ankalaev. Israel Adesanya gave his live reaction to Alex Pereira losing to Magomed Ankalaev at UFC 313, and let's just say, he was shocked. Izzy didn't hold back his thoughts on the decision, making it clear that he believed Alex won the fight. If you want to see his full breakdown, check out his reaction video on his YouTube channel. Links in the description. When the judges' scorecards were announced, Adesanya couldn't believe it. He reacted immediately, saying, "Wow, 49-46? What was that?" That scoreline surprised a lot of people, but Izzy was especially vocal about it. He pointed out that Pereira had dropped Ankalaev, which should have made a big difference in the scoring. He dropped him. Yeah, won that round too. One of the biggest frustrations for Adesanya was Ankalaev's strategy. He felt like the grappling exchanges didn't do enough to justify such a wide margin on the scorecards. The holding, he didn't really do much with the holding. And then, in classic Izzy fashion, he summed up his frustration by saying, "What a stupid game we play." That's when he started second-guessing things, because as he admitted, MMA judging can be unpredictable, and emotions run high in the moment. I think everyone, I don't know, I had Alex winning. He was confident at first, but then he took a step back, realizing he might need to re-watch the fight more closely. Yeah, I had Alex winning, but I'm not sure. I have to watch it again or score the fight properly. And that's a fair point. Sometimes when watching a fight live, the excitement and energy of the moment can make it hard to assess every round objectively. But Adesanya's initial reaction aligns with what a lot of fans and analysts were saying. This fight was much closer than the judges' scorecard suggested. So what do you think? Did Magomed Ankalaev clearly win that fight, or do you agree with Adesanya that Alex Pereira should have gotten the nod? Demetrious Johnson argues over Jon Jones's loss. Mighty Mouse has entered the debate surrounding Jon Jones' MMA record, and he's making it clear, whether people like it or not, Jones has a loss on his record. This is a discussion that's been ongoing for years, and Johnson had some strong opinions on it. The argument is simple: should Jon Jones be considered undefeated despite the one official loss on his record? For those who don't know, Jon Jones' only official loss came way back in 2009 against Matt Hamill, but it wasn't a traditional loss where he was outclassed, knocked out, or submitted. It was a disqualification for landing illegal 12-6 elbows. This specific strike is banned in MMA, and because Jones landed it repeatedly, the referee stopped the fight and gave the win to Hamill via DQ. A lot of fans and even some fighters argue that this shouldn't really count as a loss. They say Jones was dominating the fight, that Hamill wasn't actually winning, and that if the fight had continued, Jones would have secured an easy victory. But Johnson doesn't see it that way. He made his stance crystal clear. He lost. He broke the rules. That's not a get your ass kicked loss, but it's an L. Winning is winning. Jon Jones is the best 205er this planet has ever seen. He's never us. You don't put that even on Jon Jones. Never us. That last part is interesting because while Johnson acknowledges the loss, he still believes Jones is the best fighter to ever compete at 205. But at the end of the day, records are records. And as he pointed out, his record shows 28 wins and 1 loss. That's a disqualification loss. So what are you mad about? It's still a loss. That's the key point. Whether you agree with the ruling or not, the official record doesn't lie. Jones may have never been knocked out, submitted, or beaten on the scorecards, but he did break the rules. And in the eyes of the sport, that counts as a loss. So what do you think? Should Jon Jones be considered undefeated, or does that DQ loss still count no matter the circumstances? Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway leaked? It looks like we might be getting an epic trilogy fight between Dustin Poirier and Max Holloway, and this one could be Poirier's retirement fight. Recently, Poirier made it clear that he wants his final fight to be against a legend. He's had an incredible career, and it seems like the UFC is looking to book a matchup that does justice to his legacy. And what better way to close out his career than a trilogy bout with Max Blessed Holloway? If this fight happens, it will be the third time these two warriors have met inside the octagon. Their first fight was way back in 2012, when Poirier submitted Holloway in the first round with a mounted triangle armbar. At the time, Max was just starting his UFC career, and Poirier was already an established contender. Their second fight took place in 2019 for the interim lightweight championship. It was an absolute war, with Poirier winning by unanimous decision after a 5-round brawl. The fight showcased Poirier's power at 155 pounds, while Holloway, who was moving up from featherweight, proved his insane durability and relentless pace. Now, reports suggest that the UFC is actively discussing booking this trilogy fight. While nothing is official yet, sources say Poirier versus Holloway 3 is being worked on right now. If this is truly Poirier's final fight, there's no doubt that fans would love to see him and Holloway settle the score once and for all. Both men are known for putting on fight of the night performances, and a third battle between them could easily be one of the biggest fights of the year. So what do you think? Will Poirier versus Holloway 3 actually happen? And if it does, who are you picking to win this time?